We're going to be finishing our portrait today. Last time we looked at some of the base places of the darkest value because we're working on our darkest values first and then establishing our lighter values after that. We talked a little bit about the hair technique and how we're going to create the contrast or the texture that is necessary for a full head of hair. And so we're just going to continue along those lines. The darkest side of the face is right here, and so we're going to move into the lighter areas. Remember, the areas of reflectivity are the forehead, the nose, the cheeks, and the chin. We're going to finish the eyes, add the eyelashes, and make it a little bit darker over here next to the earrings, and then we should be close to done. I'm going to skip around a little bit. I'm not going to spend too much time on any one particular area because as we are trying to finish the overall portrait, we're going to have to take a kind of a bird's eye view and locate those areas that just need a little bit more fine tuning and don't want to spend too much time on any one particular area. Side of the face is in shadow, and so I had a value there, but I'm just trying to go a little bit darker with it so we can start to bring that into the highlighted area. Remember, the darkest areas of value will be underneath the eyebrows, underneath the nose, underneath the lips, and then again the areas of reflectivity: forehead, cheeks, nose, and chin. There's also a pretty good shadow of the hair itself on the forehead. So here's, if the hair is here, the shadow of the hair is here, just underneath it. Using a 2B pencil, just nice and light, and just kind of glaze over the top of the paper. It's going to look a little rough. You don't want to go too dark. Just enough to be able to blend that in. Using the blending stick, thumb underneath, fingers on top, laying it on its side, not using it like a pencil, not pressing down on the tip, but just enough to blend those values together, make them a little bit darker. If things turn out to be a little streaky, you can circular motion. Again, not a whole lot of pressure here. Push that ear back just a little bit. We just see the lobe of the ear here. And then as you blend, sometimes the details will be diminished, and so you just have to kind of go back in and bring them back out. For instance, the eyelid line, which is pretty dominant. The eyebrow. Again, sharp pencil point to be lead. Now the value on this side is not going to be as much. There's a little value there because of the hair casting shadow. but you can achieve that primarily with the blending stick that has been used. You can go to the darkest areas, kind of load it up a little bit, and then bring it back into the face. Underneath the chin here, we're going to need to probably go a little bit darker so that contrast is there. But once you've done a couple portraits, you're going to start to focus on those areas that help make certain parts stand out. So again, contrast of value is key. Proportion is very, very important. So it's a hard edge shadow as the chin is casting that shadow, but then there's also the skin tone of the rest of the neck, and you can bring the blending stick down a little bit and capture that as well. Interior of these earrings are very dark and very reflective, so I want to spend a little time there just making those values and details stand out just enough. Firm amount of pressure. Now, in these smaller areas where I'm just trying to kind of squeeze in a little bit, I would advise you to use the tip of the blending stick, but again, don't press too hard. You don't want it to telescope and then shrink into a little nub, because then it becomes kind of useless after that. The blending sticks are most effective when they are long and relatively pointed. Bring out some of the texture of the hair as we go up towards the rest of the head. Got a lot of work left to do in the upper portion. Shouldn't take too long. Process technique remains the same. Feathering technique, pulling your pencil strokes, one direction, lifting your pencil up off the paper as you finish the line to kind of taper it. And then when you have a number of those lines, they tend to grow together in form. Again, this area here is kind of called a hub, where the lines kind of come together and then divide and separate as you go from the part to the twist in the hair. As I move up, and then I'm going to cascade down this way, have to focus on this part as the lines kind of come up and then curve over. So they're going to look like one long extended line, but I need to get it started. And I can get it started with some shorter strokes and then weave into them some longer ones. And now I can go both directions. I can bring it down here and then kind of meet in the middle. And it helps, instead of looking at this whole section as one section, you can take this large section and break it up into smaller sections. For instance, if I just take these two smaller sections here and then just try to fill them in with texture and then move on to another part, then it kind of, I don't bite off more than I can chew, and I'm not sitting there just trying to fill in space as quickly as I can. The ends justifies the means. So if I can break it down in my mind to a smaller section, it's easier, it's more palatable. I don't get as frustrated. And I go bit by bit, and then about 10 minutes, it's like, oh, okay, now I see it. It's starting to come together. So it's not a quick, fast formula process. There is some work involved. There is some patience involved. And yes, you can add a blending stick to the hair, but again, be careful. Still feather it. Go one direction. Don't go back and forth. Don't try to cover an area real quickly, because you want the texture to remain. For the longer strokes, you work from your elbow and even your shoulder sometimes, because if all I do is work from my wrist, the natural movement of your hand will curve your lines. And while I want these lines to be wavy, I don't want them to curve in the same fashion over and over again. So I got to work more from my elbow or shoulder than just my wrist. May seem awkward at first, but I assure you, you'll get much better results. So again, take a wider area, break it up into smaller parts, fill in those smaller parts, and then move on to another area. If you found that you have gone too dark and want to kind of create some areas that are a little bit lighter, you can use your kneadable eraser, pinch it into a chisel tip right here, and just, again, feathering, go separate strokes and just kind of lift some of those values out. And in addition to lightening the values, it'll kind of blend some of those lines together. And so the texture's not removed completely. And you can go back in. So I'm not going to add as much if I'm trying to lighten up, but I'm just going to return some of the texture lines so that it blends together more seamlessly. Okay, so starting to get some dimension on the hair there. Nearing the end of our time. If the values are good inside the eyelids and underneath the eyebrows, may be time to add the eyelashes. And again, feathering, just flicks of the wrist. And then on the bottom, the tear duct there, that little piece of skin. And the same on the other side. Pretty full. They're not all exactly the same length. Some are longer, some are shorter. Now there's a little line here that kind of like shadow of the eyelash. It's not an eyelash, it's the shadow of the eyelash. It kind of comes down like this. And then at this point, just really being objective, looking at your drawing, say, okay, does this need more light? Does this need more detail? Does this need more value? Does this need more blending? And do your final details. The last thing you want to do, if everything is set, is sign it, and you will have your completed portrait. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.